Whoa!
Hey,
All right, there we go. Is there any way we
what's
can
up?
center your camera just in case we do this three-way variety here?
Yeah, hold
That scene is familiar. I think I saw you shredding some guitar a while back.
up. Oh yeah, man. Yeah, I've just been experimenting with like what you can do with streaming. I don't know. I'm doing it for fun, but yeah, heck yeah, man. This is the room. This is the Beat Lab.
Very nice. And I listened to your most recent episode on it's like part 4 of Irish history of World War One or something. It sounds like you're in your car.
No, that's yeah, Matt. I'm actually like the co-host slash producer of that podcast.
Oh, okay.
I mean, I'm kind of like the whole like background of it. We used to record together a lot more. He works 2 jobs now, so it's pretty difficult to get him in a studio anymore. But yeah, he does like a lot of research on whatever topic he wants to talk about, and then yeah, I mean he does it whenever he can. It's kind of like guerrilla podcasting, but
Yeah.
I don't know. It's kind of embarrassing now to show those episodes because they're like you like a lot of the smaller podcasters out there, like the Liberty podcasters, they're always like, "Oh, you guys were like the good quality," because like I have a little bit of like audio experience,
Uh-huh.
but I can only do so much with what he gives me. So, but
Yeah. Well, we've been doing
the
this.
content though, yeah,
We've been doing this a while. We used to have a really unique sound. Robert used to record over the phone for a long time. What is that?
yeah,
Like the first year or two, Robert? Something like that. I don't know if you can hear
yeah. I think
us.
that yeah. You there, Robert?
Yeah, he likes to pretend. He's good.
Yeah. I mean, yeah, I think Matt does like he's not as in tune with like the audio stuff as me, so he'll be like, "Oh, I got these sweet headphones, or I got this really cool like lava mic," and I'm like, "Well, it doesn't really help if if you're driving down the highway, but I try to do some like noise reduction stuff and like some EQing and make the best out of it, but I think the content he does a pretty good job. He's kind of like like it's an every so often kind of release schedule, so he kind of reminds me of like a Ryan Dawson or something where he does like a bunch of research on something and then he'll put it out like we used
Right.
to be like a weekly thing, which it'd be nice if we still were, but I mean I did like a couple myself, but I don't know. People at this point, like he's a sharp guy, so I get why I don't mind being like the support, not like the lead or anything. But yeah, I'm friends with a lot of podcasters though, so I've been on a few. So like yeah, I just really like your guys' podcast, so that's cool you guys have me on.
Yeah. Well, thank you. It's good to hear from somebody out in the wild who has heard what we do and is like, "Hey, I like it."
Well, it's kind of like an idea that I had myself. I was because I listened to a lot of like movie, TV show. Like I'm really into the Sopranos, those
Hmm.
Talking Sopranos
Yeah,
and stuff. Like
Sopranos.
yeah, man, this is a sweet show. But
It is.
I'm always like, oh yeah, I'll start a movie review podcast and stuff. But and it'll be like from a Liberty standpoint, and I'm gonna do that. And then I heard I like Googled it. I'm like, oh damn it, these guys did it, and it's actually good. So I don't really I shouldn't do it. It's pointless. You guys already have cornered that market, which is fine. I enjoy listening to your podcast. So, oh shit.
Well, there's always room for more, especially if you can improve on what we do. Also, there's like what tens of thousands of movies. We can only do one a week.
Yeah, yeah. Well, you guys have done a lot of movies that I like and would do. So, I'd just do like I don't know. I would just do like the basic, anyways. The Matrix, Pulp Fiction, whatever's like cool, and you can insert Liberty into it anywhere. But
Yeah,
yeah,
I
but yeah.
feel like
Also, it's not all about the Liberty too. I mean, I'm just a movie buff a little bit, so
yeah, I feel like we've gotten a little bit away from like liberty
yeah,
elements. and now we're just kind of like two middle-aged dudes' opinions and their guests.
Well, it's funny when you guys try to you guys will sometimes try to insert it. Like, I feel like that's happened. You're like, yeah, what's the libertarian take on this or something? And it's like,
Yeah.
well, this is this.
Oh, you there?
You know what I'm saying?
Oh, it cut out for a second. I think we missed the punchline.
Oh no, I was just like, it's funny. Sometimes you guys will be like, yeah, it'll feel like you guys are trying to find the libertarian take, but then it's just like the movie's like Shrek or something. You know, it's just like there's no liberty take, but it's just a good movie or whatever.
Yeah, or like
that's
Nacho
fine.
Libre or Billy Madison or something like that.
Yeah.
Yeah, Robert usually doesn't like doing those, but we end up finding something. Gentlemen Broncos, which
it's a stretch sometimes.
Gentlemen Broncos had a ton in it, though.
Yeah, it did. But that's not exactly a comedy, a straight comedy. It's actually got a plot, and there's actually some property ID theft talking about that we got into with the old copyright and whatnot.
Yeah.
Right on. Did you guys ever do The Big Lebowski?
Oh, yeah. Yeah. That's a good movie. Great movie.
Oh, that's my fave, man.
Yeah. When we do that one? It's been a couple of years, I think. Let me see. Lebowski.
Yeah, I don't remember. I'm not sure what the first one is. I think do you know Nick Pacone?
Yeah.
Do you guys know that? Yeah, that guy. I think he turned me onto your guys' podcast a couple years ago. I can't remember the first one I heard, but
okay,
I was like,
yeah.
damn, this is good.
Lebowski was episode 68.
Oh wow, you guys are what, like 1,000? Like, you guys are
no. This is what, 247?
Dude. Okay, I don't know. I saw something that said like 1,800. So maybe I'm wrong. I don't know. Like on Apple, yeah, there was something that's on the Last Nighters podcast. It was like 1,800. Maybe Apple screwed up. I don't know.
Oh, that's probably 187 or 188 or something like that. Because this is 189 of that. Unless I might have, or this is 190. So I might have typoed something if it says 1,800.
Yeah, it was like 8. Hold up. I actually saw it. I was like, damn, that's a lot of movies. Dude, I don't know. Maybe I'm an idiot. I don't know.
Well, that'd make 3 of us.
I don't even know where.
Yeah, you'll fit right in. Don't worry about it.
Cool.
We've done that movie, actually. And Robert, that 3 Idiots, both YouTube videos have gotten a bunch of comments, I assume from people from India, saying, oh, you got to do this movie and this other movie. And they're all like names I cannot say. You know, I don't know how to enunciate them. Like 3 Idiots I can say. But
so have they been translated? Or would we be watching it in subtitles?
Oh, I don't know. I'd have to look at the title of the movie titles that they've suggested and then see like what that entails, like what the movie is, if it's in Hindi or if it's singing and dancing, because I know you love those.
I
if it's
do
operatic,
love a good singing dance,
musical,
good song and dance.
Yeah, man.
Bollywood style, man, they got it down.
Yeah, I'd be fine doing some more Bollywoods. I think that was fun. But we're not doing a Bollywood tonight. We're doing one that I think this one's risque. This one's going to be a tough one, especially when you're fucking looking the part there, Johnson.
You talking to me? What
yeah.
are you trying to say, Daniel? Are you trying to imply something? Let me hear
see
it.
This?
I want to hear what you're trying to imply, Daniel.
Not welcome here.
I'm just raising the flag. That's what I'm doing. I'm just going out, seeing where the friendlies are at.
The Buddha too is giving off some, pagan vibes, which the white supremacists are into these days. So, I went down a crazy rabbit hole yesterday. So,
related to this movie?
No, it was more about like, basically, I think it's just super corny. Like if you Google American History X, there's a bunch of articles about it that are pretty recent. And they'll say like, this movie is more needed now than ever, within the past 4 years, probably because of Trump, and So people are talking about it still. But so I'm like, okay, is there a big Nazi movement? Which I don't necessarily think there is, but there kind of is, and they're like really into paganism now, and yeah, that's a whole nother conversation. But yeah.
So they're not so much the Christian. Every time I've seen them, they've been like the Knights of whatever, and they're Christian whatevers.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's more like a symbol. Like for example, there's this religion called Asatru, which is like a Nordic religion, and there's people who are like legit in it, who it's based off of like they believe in like the Aryans and stuff from like prehistoric times, and there's a lot of obviously like NRX dudes who are flocking to that that religion, and by a lot, I mean, I don't know how many, like 30, 20, I don't know, but like it's just like there's tons of videos on you. Like I said, I went down this crazy rabbit hole yesterday, but damn, it's storming here. But yeah, no, it's just it is weird that there's like, oh shit, they're into paganism now, not like Protestantism. Yeah.
Haven't heard that one before.
Well, what are the meetings like, Robert?
Well, we usually don't. Well, we don't get into the paganism stuff. I mean, Daniel, we just hang out and we shoot hoops. That's what we do.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
That's our main meeting group.
That's how the beefs are decided.
Yeah, that's how turf wars are happen. Is through a game of basketball. Not as hardcore as you guys want to make it out in the mainstream media. Your propaganda.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. Well, this will be an interesting movie to talk about. I had some thoughts. Thoughts.
That the dinner conversation scene is one spicy meatball. Let me tell you,
dude, that scene's good. Like, I touched up on this movie the other day, and it's like I haven't actually watched it in probably a couple years, but I've probably seen it like 10 times. But it's really cool. Like each scene is like a 5-minute long mini movie because they're like, I mean, maybe that's how all movies are, but if you really feel like, yeah, like that scene, it's like, it's really chill at first and then it gets super intense, you know? It's like, that's probably why I'm into it.
Yeah, it's visceral, man. Visceral.
Yeah.
Good basketball too. That's my favorite part.
Yeah. You believe Ed Norton can dunk like that?
Oh, dude, he throws down, reverse jams in your face, posterizes your dumbass.
He's like 5'8".
Dude, in this movie, he's like 6'2" or 6'3" at least.
He'd have to be.
He's got to be.
I already put on 25 pounds of muscle.
Yeah, he looks pretty shredded. You know, it's funny because he gets into it for the pride of basically the race, but he's like he's like, you know, eat right, exercise, take your vitamins, Hulk Hogan style. You know,
hey,
work
brother.
out, you know, don't put the drug stuff into your body. That's no good. That's for the brown people to do. You know, be a good shining example of what a good strong Aryan can be. It's almost like a self-help book that he just took it to some weird extreme place. I don't know. It's kind of funny.
Yeah. Well, here we are burning all this content.
Yeah, that's some good content, Daniel.
What's temperature like for you?
You talking to me?
Man. It's
Robert.
warm. Are you guys in the same place?
We're near each other. It's 98 outside and it's 86 inside my office right now.
Holy shit.
It's not that hot here. It's probably 90 outside right now, and it feels about mid 80s right in where I'm at.
Okay. All right. So you're not like sweating balls and you got to get out of there.
I forgot my freaking drink because I'm a retard. I might be able to find some water here to sip on or something, but I might get thirsty.
Yeah, it was like 95 earlier, and I live in an old house, and my office is upstairs.
Oh,
so it's basically 90, and it's basically 90 in here. But I have this little like tower fan going, and it feels not too bad.
Okay, yeah, I saw a flash out that window too. So you got a lightning storm going?
Yeah, it's getting ready to storm pretty good. I'm pretty sure. So hopefully that doesn't disrupt anything.
Yeah, I hope we don't lose you. All right. Well, we could probably get started here. So, Nick, is there anything that I should mention in your introduction other than Nick White, no relation to the movement described in this movie, podcast host of the Statist Quo? Anything else?
Yeah, you could say like the producer of the Status Quo, and like I like make music for I'm like basically a like a sync artist, I guess you'd call it. Like I made the music for the Status Quo, and then I made the music for Jason Stapleton's podcast, and so like I kind of like have a little side hustle where I try to sell music mainly for people's podcasts, because kind of shit I like to write, because it's pretty easy and it's gripping. But it's called, there's a website called nickwhitenoise.com. There's like there's like bio of me and samples of, some music I do, and stuff. I mean, that'd be cool, but you don't, it's not like, it's like my side hustle, so I don't really care either way. But if you want to mention that'd be sweet.
I'm down with that. And
Sweet,
Status Quo, where do we find that? At statusquo.com?
It's the Statist Quo, thestatistquo.net, because .com was taken for some reason.
Okay. And right?
Yeah,
is necessary.
It's important.
Okay.
The definitive Status Quo.
Got it. Okay, I'll try to remember to say this stuff when I introduce you. I even took notes.
If you don't, I took some notes for this show a little bit.
No, thank you. It's more than I did. Sometimes I take lots of notes. Sometimes I take no notes, and I find that I'm happier with the episodes I took no notes on. I don't know why.
Well, you guys, I did. You guys' show is kind of chill, but also a lot of your guests sound like huge movie buffs, and I'm like, well, I am one, but I don't know everything about film, so I better like have something to say, whatever. Yeah,
I'm always underwhelmed by how little we actually know about movies.
Just like to watch them.
Yeah. And I mean, the whole genesis of our show was just Robert and I were just talking about whatever, and we just happened to use movies as examples in our initial like episodes, and so we're like, oh, let's just do that. Just do movies and fit the thing around it. So
yeah, I can definitely relate. I can definitely relate to that. It's a lot of places I worked at. It's just like quoting movies to get a point across or something. Yeah. It's our jam. All right, so Nick, I'm going to put you in the back room here, and then we will. Oh, the green room. Call it the green room, because that's another white supremacist movie that we did a while back. Have you seen Green Room? Okay. No, I did. No, I don't think so. No, I haven't.
It's got Patrick Stewart in it, and punk scene. It's almost like a survival horror thing with the bad guys are the zombies are the Nazis or the white supremacists, and there's this group of people trying to escape. No, I don't think I saw that one, but that sounds pretty sweet. It's pretty good. It's pretty good. I enjoyed it. All right. Well, we're going to get started here. All right. So, Robert, you about ready there, bud?
Fuck yeah, bro. Let's do this shit.
Fuck yeah, bro. Let me kick it live, bro. Totally, bro. All right, let's bro it up, bro.
All right. Let's get fired up here.
Maximum freedom. Read.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom.
Stay on target.
Maximum freedom. Read Rothbard.
Well, hello and welcome to the Actual Anarchy podcast, the podcast where we talk about movies from a Rothbardian and anarcho-capitalist perspective. And tonight we're doing a spicy meatball. Yes, it's American History X, and it's a controversial movie when it came out. Lots of controversy surrounded it shortly after it came out, and it's been cropping up recently, as our guest has mentioned, in some of the pre-show bonus content available for our Patreon supporters. Go to actualanarchy.com/Patreon to send some money our way, and you'll get to see some of the pre-show and post-show bonus content that we put your way. By doing that. This is episode 247 of the show. You can find the show notes more at actualanarchy.com/247. We will introduce our guest in a few moments as we get into the last night's portion of the show. But before we do that, let's say hello to Robert. How are things going over there on the east side?
What's up, D-Rock? Hello, everybody. Glad to be back on the show for another episode. It's really smoky. There's a whole lot of fires nearby. There's one really, really big one up on Mount Bonaparte, which is one of my favorite recreation areas. And in fact, they have closed my favorite mountain biking trail due to risk of fire. So that's kind of a bummer for me. I've had to go far and wide to hit some trails that are still open. But otherwise, yeah, things are good. Things are fantastic, Daniel. I'm eating right, you know. I'm taking care of my body, you know. Just trying to stay in shape, you know. I'm not shooting a lot of hoops, but you know,
taking your vitamins.
I'm taking my vitamins. It's good.
All right, and you getting that D all over your?
I'm getting a lot of D all over my face, neck, and chest. It's fantastic.
All right, I hear that's good for you. I hear that it's a necessary thing.
Doctors recommend it. So do it. You got to do it.
Not that we're doctors. We're saying that we're relaying information from doctors who would have said this. We got to cover all our bases, man.
I don't recall ever claiming to be a doctor. I don't recall ever claiming to be an expert at anything.
Not even movie reviews.
Clearly not movie reviews. 100%. Definitely not.
Right. I mean, we've had 246 preceding examples of how bad we are at this.
Yeah, if there's ever needs to be like there's a trial, that we got so much evidence in our favor that look, these guys are idiots. They don't know what they're talking about.
Yeah. Haven't we made it abundantly clear throughout the tenure of our show here that we don't know what the fuck we're talking about? But we still have a good time doing it, and so that's why we keep at it.
That's probably the reason.
Yeah, good enough.
Yeah.
So anyway, we have an exciting guest. He reached out to us because he's a fan of the show. I know they're out there. It surprised me too. Somebody actually listened to the show, liked what we did, and they're here to come on and talk about this movie, American History X. So let's introduce him in the last night's portion of the show right after these messages. Hey everyone, it's Daniel Elwood and Robert Paul Johnson, and I are the Last Nighters. You can find us at lastnighters.com. And tonight we're talking American History X. This is episode 190 of the show. You can find the show notes more at lastnighters.com/190. Now, for our guest tonight, this is a selection that he made, and he is Nick, who is the producer and co-host of the Statist Quo, and you can find that at thestatistquo.net. And he also creates music that is found in many popular podcasts. And you can find that stuff over at nickwhitenoise.com. And Nick, welcome to the show. Why don't you just tell anyone anything else that I might have missed in the little intro, and what made you pick this movie?
What's up, man? Thanks for inviting me on. I think you got it. You know, I just have been a fan of this movie for a long time, and I've recently saw that, well, I looked it up, and there's a lot of people talking about this movie saying that it's more relevant now than ever, which I find hilarious because they probably think it's more relevant now than ever for the complete wrong reasons. But yeah, I don't know. I've never heard like a take on this movie from somebody who actually believes in liberty. So yeah, I don't know. I figure a couple libertarian guys who do a movie podcast, why not reach out?
All right. Well, that's a tall order because I don't know how good we are at what we do here, but this should be a lot of fun. And it's a movie I hadn't seen in probably a decade and a half or so. So it was good to go back and watch it again, and I think it holds up really well. It's a well done movie. So thank you for suggesting it. It is one that I've been wanting to do for a while, but I also consider it kind of a third rail, as I'm sure we'll get into some of those points as we continue on here. But how we start off, Robert, is with some sound
Wow.
effects.
Wow.
American History X.
X gonna give it to you.
And
No,
I'm going to pull
that's
up the description, the Google description. I think is that showing up yet? No, not yet. How about now? How you like me now? There it is. Okay, so Google description reads, American History X came out 1998, got an 8.5 out of 10 on that IMDb, 83% Rotten Tomatoes, 62% on Metacritic, and 93% of Google users like it. The description reads, living a life marked by violence and racism, neo-Nazi Derek Vineyard, played by Edward Norton, finally goes to prison after killing 2 black youths who tried to steal his car. Upon his release, Derek vows to change his ways. He hopes to prevent his younger brother, Danny, played by Eddie Furlong, who idolizes Derek, from following in his footsteps. As he struggles with his own deeply ingrained prejudices and watches their mother grow sicker, Derek wonders if his family can overcome a lifetime of hate. Came out October 30, 1998, directed by Tony Kaye, and significant editing by Ed Norton, actually. And there's some controversy around that where Tony Kaye, the director, disowned the film and got blacklisted in Hollywood as a result of his difficulties in being hard to work with. But I think he did a fine film here. And Robert, let's go to you for your opening salvo, please.
All right. Well, I don't know if I'm qualified to talk about this film, but I'll do my best. I'm sure that there are some big brains out there that have said some very smart things, but all I've done is I've watched the film. I remember seeing it a long time ago, and the thing that stood out to me, as I recall, is just the initial carjacking, killing, and then there's some prison stuff, and then some partying, and that's about it. Maybe the death at the end. But watching it again recently, I was struck by how well written it was. I can't necessarily speak to how accurate, the neo-Nazi rally meetings are, or what exactly their ideology is, or that kind of thing. But the main thing that I was struck by, and I do want to get into the property rights issues, the libertarian aspects, the NAP, that kind of thing, with the killings and other things like that. But I was mostly a little bit disappointed because it seemed to be that Derek was this, he's this guy, he's a pretty bright guy, and he has some tragedy in his life, whereas his father is killed by some gangbangers or something like that. He's trying to put out a fire. So he's got some trauma in his life, and he falls under the tutelage of this neo-Nazi propagandist guy who kind of like, whatever. He has this little clan of Nazis, wannabe people. But Derek really is this almost a positive. He's like almost like turning your life around kind of a person. Like, no, be a shining beacon of what a person could be, and be proud of your race and that kind of thing. If he was a black guy and he was, I'm gonna be the best I can be, and I love being black and blah blah blah, then I don't know anybody would have a problem with this. But since it's a white guy and he hates all these other groups, then we're like, this is, I'm with him on the, eat right, eat vegetables, take your vitamins, work out, that kind of stuff. But
when work hard and care about your community, like those are some of the other ththings he sort of talked about.
Right. Absolutely. And one of my problems with the movie is because there's a scene, and I really want to dig into this scene. I don't remember all the dialogue, hardly any of it really, but there's a dinner scene where they're arguing about the Rodney King thing. And I think he actually makes a lot of strong points about personal responsibility. And I don't remember all the stuff, but I remember him making a lot of strong points, but then he takes it to the next level where I wouldn't go. And at the end of the movie, he renounces like all of that, like everything. He's like, I'm just done with it. I'm not going to be a part of this neo-Nazi stuff anymore. And from an audience perspective, or at least from my perspective, I'm left to wonder, what exactly is he renouncing? Is he renouncing just hanging out with these neo-Nazi people? Because that's what he physically actually does. He's going to move on with his life. He's not going to hang out with these neo-Nazis anymore. But is he like renouncing all his previous ideas? Because some of those ideas are pretty good.
Whoa.
They were. I'm not into it with all the Hitler loving stuff, obviously. But taking care of yourself, taking care of your community, having personal responsibility, owning up for your actions, and that kind of stuff.
Yeah, but in present age, right? Those are actually signs of quote unquote white supremacy now. So that's one of the
being
things
on time. Yes, I understand.
Stood out to me because it felt like just because we know he's the bad guy in the film. I mean, yeah, he has this redemptive arc, but just going into it, he's the bad guy with the bad ideas. Yet he's making a lot of points that an objective viewer would be like, yeah, that's a not awful point. He maybe takes it too far or attributes malice or causation and hatred. So he takes it, several steps too far. But it almost is like this movie as a as a vehicle of promulgating ideas into the culture is almost making all of those topics third rails. Like just because the bad guy brought him
guilt
up.
by association type stuff, right?
Right. So, like, say at the end where the affirmative action speech from the dad.
Yeah,
like
I definitely want to talk about that.
That's supposed to be the culmination of here's where Derek got his bad ideas.
That's where it started. It all started with questioning affirmative action, and that started the ball rolling of him being a neo-Nazi.
Right.
It's the slippery slope gateway drug to being a skinhead.
Right. So anyway, I didn't mean to derail you, but I just wanted to make that point that it really felt like culturally this movie is there to sort of frame the debate of what's acceptable and what's not. And so it makes certain subjects taboo, even though they are, I mean, almost anything should be open to debate. I know that that's not how the world works anymore. But it seems to me that you should be able to articulate ideas and explore ideas and learn about things and have opinions.
Right. I mean, that's one of the things I liked about the movie was that they turned Derek, they had him such a well-written character that they made him intelligent. They made him not a cartoon, like cartoonishly evil. Like they had a really strong point of view. He had reasons, justifiable reasons for why he believed the way he did. But you're right. He is the villain character. So he takes it to the next level, right? That where most people would not go. Takes it to that extreme. But he's not a cartoon. He's a complex protagonist / villain character that I think he's entirely relatable to the audience. So in that sense, I think he's highly well written. Whereas some of the ancillary characters, we don't get enough screen time for them to be really, well written. They're just kind of small time characters. We really just get Derek and kind of his brother, kind of maybe. Man, we don't really get many other people.
We get a little of the sister and the mother and Ethan
right.
Suplee
a little bit, but not. It's mostly just Derek's story. Anyway, it's good. I want to say that, but you're right. I don't like the way either the filmmaker or the leftists who have like glommed onto this film to say, look, neo-Nazi bad, and this is like your point, like, and all these things that he's talking about are associated with Nazism. Like it right, goes back to the Larkin Rose video. Like it can happen here. I think it's called or
can't
why are
happen
the
here.
Nazis bad?
Right.
Where it's like the difference between the Nazis and like the U.S. government or any necessarily government is just like 1 degree of separation. Like this is a slight little difference. Otherwise, it's
framing.
basically the same thing.
Yeah.
You know, like he's like a normal person, but he takes it that little step further where you're like, oh, whoa. Because otherwise he's a fairly rational, intelligent human being, right? And even
Right.
the history professor guy really likes him, even though he's a neo-Nazi guy.
Right. And he seemed to like the
son
guy.
too, or the younger brother.
Yeah, and they liked him as well. Like they had a mutual respect for him. It was like, okay. But Nick, we'll bring in just a second here. But one final point I wanted to make is that it's almost as if all of the Trump Orange Man Bad syndrome that we started seeing in 2014, 2015, up to the 2016 election, it's almost as if all of those Never Trumper Orange Man Bads, they saw this movie, they saw him talking about similar things. They're like, oh, well, of course, he's a white supremacist Nazi skinhead. Orange Man.
Same with Jordan Peterson. Like he talks a lot about self-improvement, cleaning your room, taking care of yourself and your community. Sounds like Derek, except for the little bit extra.
Right. And to your point earlier about, imagine if it was a black guy or someone else saying these things and doing these things. I like to do that thought exercise in my head when I see like news articles talking about something being bad or something being taboo. Well, what if you just changed one of the words? Is it still bad? And that is a good way of like divining, okay, what is the core of something? Is it the principle at play, or is it special special pleading?
Indeed, Daniel, indeed.
Anyway,
Nick, do you have any comments on our messy little intro here?
Well, I'm glad Robert went first and made it seem a little more, because I didn't want to seem like, oh man, I'm such a fan of this movie. It's like that sounds a little creepy. I am a big fan of the movie, not because I'm like a white supremacist train, but yeah, I mean, I think that from the get-go, the point was to make Derek a very sympathetic character, actually, because like the very first scene, he's like defending his home from violent robbers, essentially, who have guns, which is like a weird, like that. When I just watched it, I was like, huh, they're really trying to make you root for this guy who has a swastika on his chest. I'm assuming because I was not because of the swastika, because like, I'm a libertarian. I've been in the gun circles and stuff like that. So like, I'm like, oh yeah, what would you like? The first guy he shot was the most justified, and the second guy he shot and later did the worst thing ever in film too. That was
my teeth still hurt just from that.
Yeah, that was brutal.
Yeah,
that wasn't justified. And then I think shooting the guy in the car or whatever, I don't think that was really justified either. He was fleeing away. But like, I think it was supposed to make you like sympathetic to him because he's defending his home. And then also I think the movie's interesting because in a way it's kind of like I mean, pretty much Derek is the main character, but Danny's like the narrator, and it's kind of like it starts off with him in school and he's writing the paper American History X. So it's kind of like who's the main character, who's the story, but obviously it's mostly about Derek. That's not a huge important detail, but like, yeah, I mean, I don't know. And also I noted, I thought this too, when they were having that, the dinner scene that you were talking about, Robert, with Rodney King, that kind of sounds a lot like what right wingers talk about George Floyd today. Mm-hmm. So I thought that was kind of lame, where he's like, well, he's breaking the law, so who cares? They can just kill him. I'm like, well, yeah, George Floyd might have been a piece of shit, but maybe not. You don't have to like crush his lungs or whatever. Maybe doing the drugs influenced it, but like, I don't know. I'm not a fan of that. So there's some similarities, but then he does just take it that extra bit. He's got the tattoo. He says the N word and the K word and stuff like that, and like, but everything else, yeah, like the dad, whenever I watch this movie with like family members around or something, they're like, oh, he's actually, what's the problem with this? He's making a great point. And I'm like, well, just wait like 5 seconds. And then, yeah. But, I mean, most of it is like good points. It's just it's and then it ends in like the problem is like collectivism. It's like, well, black bad. It's like there's no thought of like even the sister in the scene with the Rodney King stuff, she was talking about systemic problems. It's like, yeah, there have been systemic problems. That's not the cause of every problem ever, but like there have been, so it's worth talking about. He just blows it off. Like that's pretty lame. But yeah, I mean, that's kind of where I'm at. I mean, I'm a fan of it. I think it actually makes you, I think the overall message of like being a racist / being a collectivist is bad is like a good message. I mean, I'm not rolling my eyes at the movie because it's telling me not to be a Nazi. I'm rolling my eyes at the fact that society is like, oh my God, there's Nazis everywhere. Like in the movie American History X. It's like, no, there isn't. You know,
Right.
what I mean?
Yeah, there's like a few thousand of these guys, and like you were saying in the pre-show, they're now into what paganism or something like that, or at least some of them are, or some offshoot of them are.
I think all that stuff is sort of more like a justification of like the overall like deep ideology, and it's almost not worth talking about, but it would be a cool, like all the stuff they believe it, like, and that's probably only the smart ones, like the really smart ones, like a Derek might have believed this stuff if he might have believed this stuff, you know, as far as I know, because it's like a lot of I listened to like 8 hours worth of YouTube videos not because I was like, oh, this is awesome. I was just like, oh, this is like a Lord of the Rings type of movie or something. The way they're going on about like their whole history. So I was like, that's kind of cool, you know. But that's a totally separate conversation. It's, you know, I doubt any of them today actually. There's probably like 12 of them who think this stuff, and they're probably like the higher ups, you know.
Well, it is interesting. I mean, the entire rise of gangs at all, or especially like prison gangs, it's for, you know, vulnerable individuals to seek protection from anybody, really, like anybody that's willing to have them for the most part. Like even when he goes into jail, he's not a member of any gang, but everybody says, and everybody pretty much understands, that you have to join up with somebody. You need somebody to watch your back, protect you, or else you're basically vulnerable, at risk for anybody that wants to take you out or do harm to you. And that's a lot of the same is true for youths. Like, I mean, I don't know, where's he growing up here in like Los Angeles or
Venice Beach or something?
Yeah, Venice Beach. So he's in like the LA area, I think.
Which can get pretty rough. I mean,
well, they said at the beginning of the movie, like, oh, this used to be a great place. Now there's a lot of gangs. So yeah, I mean, you kind of gotta pick a side, I guess, you know.
Right, and I think the gangs and maybe even this Nazi ideology kind of gives, and much in the same way that like that. What is that? What are those? I can't remember the name, but they're those. They're the Black Zionists or something like that that go around yelling at people.
Oh, the Black Hebrew Israelites.
There you go. Those are the guys. Yeah. But they're like, you know, they give people, you know, disaffected, young, vulnerable kids a sense of identity, a sense of pride in a history, whether that's their history or not or something, but they identify with that. So what you were talking about with them researching history of the Aryans and that sort of thing, it's something to look at, I guess, and point to and be like, oh, I come from a long line of awesome people. So I could see the appeal in the message, but, you know, obviously I'm not down with the collectivist, racist, authoritarian bullshit crap.
Or what the Nazis actually did. And that's what a lot of that research is kind of ends up at, like, because there are legitimate, I guess, Asatru, that's the religion, believers who are not down with all of the racist stuff. Like they like denounce white supremacists, but they actually still believe in like the fact that they believe that Aryans were like white giants who actually built the pyramids and stuff like that. Like they still believe that, but that, you know, if you were gonna believe in that religion, like, and they're probably the left wingers of that religion, like that's probably the way you should believe in it, because it's pretty pointless to be like, well, just because I believe some white Aryans built the pyramids and stuff, that doesn't mean that we have the right to like invade Poland and France and kill a bunch of people. Like that's kind of a stretch.
Right. And I mean, I haven't, I don't know if, have either of you guys actually listened to a translated Hitler speech? Because I imagine, and like, I imagined that, a fair amount of it is, blaming the Jews for all the ills of Germany, the blaming the French and blaming the Treaty of Versailles for the World War One stuff, what happened to Germany after World War One, and then also blaming the Jews for all the financial shenanigans that they can get involved with. But a lot of it, I think, plays up on the history and the idea of the Aryan Superman and kind of this self-empowerment message of, yes, we are Germans, we are awesome, kind of the same message that like these identitarian gang groups give to their people. Like, yes, we are awesome, we can do things, you're not a loser. It's an old message, and it seems to be able to be used against people by some twisted megalomaniacs to strong effect throughout history.
Yeah, I mean, they basically. I'm sorry.
Oh, I was just gonna say I'm not too familiar with the translated works of A.H. But I have seen a speech, like somebody went to a campus and got a bunch of people cheering, and he was basically saying Hitler quotes, and he was all these progressive leftists who were like cheering him on because, I mean, they're cherry picked, obviously. So there are things that they would advocate for.
It's the socialist bits.
Yeah, and you also see a lot of that with the Hitlerian economic policy. It's basically like what we have here in the U.S. This corporate sort of merging with government and self, regulating their own industries through experts and things like that. Tom Woods had a speech on the economics of Hitler's Germany that it was basically like Bernie Sanders' economic plan, essentially.
Yeah. Well, as we know, that Germany was forced to pay all those war reparations for World War One, and they were massive. So anybody that came along and kind of riled up and got everybody's confidence back was probably a welcome message for everybody.
Yeah. And then there's the, blaming a group of people, right? Having the scapegoat and then depersoning them, othering them, which I don't know, history is repeating and or rhyming these days. But you get in trouble for saying that even. So I don't know, man.
Yeah, hopefully you guys don't get deplatformed. And also, like, man, I mean, to be honest, I would rather, because like this is a point that I thought that I came, because like the Nazis, they're not, I don't even really call them Nazis today. I mean, the NRX, like, alt-right guys of today, I would much rather have them than like the dudes from like this movie, because I think there actually was kind of a punk rock, hardcore, like Nazi. They're pretty violent in like the 80s and 90s type of thing. But like the dudes today are just like, oh yeah, I believe my weird beliefs, but like I just want to prove how like legit I am. I work out a lot, I drive a motorcycle, and like I love my family. It's like, okay, well, and I hate whatever race, and I'll be a troll online and just like make fun of them online, and that's my, it's like, okay, well, I can live with that, versus like the actual Nazis, that's basically the whole,
right? Because it sort of takes away a lot of the collectivizing and the downstream of the political, apparatus.
Yeah,
affecting
they have no political
things.
power.
Right.
Yeah.
So you brought up the dinner. I know Robert wanted to get into that a little bit. I just wanted to make one point and that is the sister who's like, what about the inequities and the systemic problems that cause these problems? And yes, while there are certainly systemic problems that cause these things, and there are things that in popular culture or in the mainstream narrative are called systemic racism, but in my opinion, those things are not the actual systemic racism. Like, that's sort of like this red herring. The actual systemic racism is the drug war. It's regulations. It's licensing to, have a hair salon. It's things that take away opportunities that people would otherwise have had. So when you take away their opportunities, they're left with fewer options. And then you have this illicit drug trade that looks pretty lucrative. And, you're off to the races as far as going down a bad path, because all of the above board paths have been regulated away from you.
Right. And then you have the violence because you can't exactly go to the cops with your inner gang issues. It's definitely explainable through the fault of governments.
Right.
To
And
the
whether
vast
it's their
majority of
intention
things.
or
The vast
not,
majority of things.
and it may or may not be their intention, but it is a likely outcome.
It sets the stage. It provides the incentives.
Right. Yeah. So anyway, it's just when I usually hear like people talk about systemic racism, my gut reaction is like, what are you talking about? And then usually what they're talking about isn't like real, like capitalism is the problem or whatever. But there are, systemic, there are government sponsored institutions and bureaucracies that are actually creating a lot of these problems.
For
Yeah,
sure.
I mean, a lot of people, they end up sounding like the opposite of what's his face, Derek's dad. I mean, it's because like Derek's dad is, like they'll say like, oh, well, why is there enough black people in so and so industry? It's like, well, maybe they didn't want to do that. There's not that, there's way less black people. So, but his dad, and that's the thing about the movie is like, it makes a lot of legit points, and I don't think they put that in there, entirely to. I guess they could, but I don't think they necessarily put them in there to make all of their good points automatically be bad just because they're associated with it. I mean, if they're like super leftist, then maybe, but like there's so many people who I know who don't. They love the movie and they're not like raging leftists, They're like, oh yeah, they make some good points, but yeah, obviously it's bad to be a Nazi. I mean, it's pretty straightforward, It's, but yeah, I just think the movie makes so many good points, and then they just go off the cliff, of collectivism, violent. It's really the violence. I mean, if it's voluntary, like they can be voluntary white supremacists, and that's like, okay, you guys are losers, but whatever. Like, that's like how the NRX dudes are today. Like the dudes with they will not replace us, dude. It's like they had one rally, big deal. They're basically non-violent except for the guy with the synagogue shooting or whatever, but that was horrible. But like most of them are just non-violent, just whatever. They have no political power whatsoever.
Yeah, and I thought it was interesting that at one point Derek is like leading a meeting. He's like on some basketball court, and he's got some guys, and it's like at night, and he's giving everybody like a powwow speech, like a rah powwow speech, and he's mostly complaining about government policies, about what, like, he's talking about how what was he? I don't even remember all the things. I probably should have taken more notes, but I think he was talking about he talked about immigration a lot and welfare and that kind of thing a lot, and crime. But I enjoy Derek for his like self-help message and like, hey man, you take care of yourself, be a shining example, a beacon, whatever, that kind of thing. But then when he starts blaming disparate groups as the cause, that's what my big problem with a lot of these Nazis is, that they blame these other groups for the ills of society and the ills of like their own problems. Like I can't succeed because the Jew is keeping me down or something like that. I mean, I don't know. They probably don't use that language. They'll probably make a more nuanced point than that. But what they seem to be essentially saying is that it's not my fault. And it's kind of at odds with their self-help message. Like, be a shining example, but yet there's all these problems caused by these other. I mean, that's, first of all, that's something I do all the time. I also talk about a self-help message, and I also claim that there are all these problems created by these other groups, mostly by governments. I think maybe because I don't even know. What's my point here?
Well, they don't have to be mutually exclusive, Robert. I mean, you can be, doing all the right things and still be getting screwed over.
Right. So are you saying that you agree with Derek in that situation then?
Well, I'm just saying that even if he's talking about this empowering message, that doesn't exclude him from saying that there are all these problems caused by these government policies. Like,
right, but he's also
exclusive.
talking. Right, those are not mutually exclusive. But he's also talking about. I don't remember. Did he actually say the Jews were doing something, or the blacks were doing something, or the Latinos were doing something? I forget. But he was saying things like that to that extent, right? No.
Yeah, I wasn't taking all the notes on all the rhetoric.
I just remember he was saying like, "Oh, hey, you used to work here, and then this Mexican dude started working here and took your job. They took your jobs, stuff like that." So,
yeah, and then they raided that store, which was pretty violent. I mean, there was a guy who was going to defend with a firearm, so I mean that could have gotten deadly. So
yeah,
and
he had every right to defend it with a firearm.
He should. Yeah.
So it's weird because, like, Nick, earlier you were saying like the area he was growing up in used to be nice, and then these gangs moved in, and so then they formed a gang that sort of like restored some level of balance, but it seems like it didn't actually improve the situation overall. It just made sure that there were some competing powers. So it's not like Venice Beach got better all of a sudden. It just got like they didn't feel so outnumbered being the way they were versus the way the other groups were. But it's not like anything was really much improved overall. It's not like Venice Beach became a nice area again.
It seemed kind of like a Cold War situation, right? Where you've got this rise of power, grouping of power, and then to respond to that, these guys group up and gather up into a gang to kind of have this detente where it's almost a mutually assured destruction. Like nobody starts anything because they know there'll be severe repercussions.
There's minor skirmishes. They settle certain things on the basketball court.
It's how all things should be settled. Like, all wars should be handled on the court. You guys get East Germany if I win this game.
Yeah, that was probably the most unrealistic scene. Was a white dude and a really fat white dude, and then taking on these like super athletic black dudes at basketball. Yeah, that was not realistic. But that again, it's like one of the scenes where you're like, I'm rooting for this guy not because he has a swastika, but because clearly he's an underdog. It's like he's by all rights should lose. And I don't support like his end game with winning, but like I don't know. They all, and that'll be like another libertarian thing. Oh, well, they mutually agreed to it. Yeah, I think if they mutually agree to it, I mean, it's still a little messed up. But
now what's messed up?
That they agreed, like, all right, if we win, the black dude's got to leave, or if we lose, the white dude's got to leave, and like the black dude was like, all right, cool, I'll take that bet, So
like him speaking for all the other black dudes, is that what you mean?
Well, it's just messed up the implication. It's just like, all right, a certain race can't hang out here now. Yeah, it is. I guess, yeah, it is for him speaking for all the other blacks. So yeah, and what if some black kid comes to play and he doesn't know that he made that bet? I guess, but.
Yeah, they can only speak for like their own group, right? The 4 or 5 of them.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I wish I'd rather everybody be able to all get along, but at
Rodney
the same
King
time,
quote: "Why can't we all just get along?
Why can't we all just get along?" But I am a firm believer in property rights, and sometimes we can't just all get along. Sometimes we do have
For sure.
differences, and maybe we should separate voluntarily. I'm all for
Absolutely. I mean, it's
segregation.
public property though. So what do you do there?
Shouldn't be public property, but you're right. There is public.
The basketball court is probably like a public park, you know.
Oh yeah, for
So-
sure.
I
Should
mean,
be privately
yeah, I
owned,
mean,
but
I'm as like property rights as any guy out there, but like I think like we can talk all day about like, oh, this wasn't realistic or that, well, whatever. But it's like they made the movie, so in terms of the movie, I mean, it's like, yeah, that's kind of a dick move to like even make that bet because especially because the black dudes were like, oh, well, we'll totally win, so yeah, it's laughable that you'd even think we'd lose, but they lost, so it was like, oh, you guys got to leave, which added to more racial tension, you know. Not that,
Right.
but
they
I mean,
bo-
but
they
it
both-
did.
they- yeah,
Well, it probably maybe down the road added to more racial tension because then you're not interacting and like having fun together playing basketball,
Elbowing
But-
each other in the face.
elbowing each other in the face. But yeah, but right. It ended the conflict there that day though. Like I don't know if the bet
Right.
should have been, hey, you guys got to leave for today.
that's a
But-
good way to think about it. Actually, it was a peaceful, you know, that's the way they peacefully ended it. But the best thing about that scene, though, I always thought this was kind of, it was actually really sad about the scene. It to me is like Derek is really about the game, like, and you can tell he's like he respects the game, and even like when the dude elbowed him, they were like, hey, you got to call foul or offense or whatever on him, and he's like, well, it's game point, you know, that's the street rules, you know, we don't do
Yeah.
that out here. And they're like, oh, what, you can't let them get away with that. It's like he really respects the game overall. You can tell later on he's chatting with his prison buddy about basketball. He's stoked about it. So it's just sad because it's like those dudes might have, you know, gotten along, but just because of their collectivist bullshit, because both of them aren't heroes, you know. So yeah.
Yeah, and that's just an example of Derek, who later on went in the prison and he sees some of the guys in his clique going to some of the other cliques and doing deals. He's like, whoa, this isn't. He's not a true believer in this philosophy. So it's showing us that while Derek's principles might be kind of fucked up, at least he has them, and he's pretty adamant to adhering to them. Like he's a true believer.
He got really autistic about it.
Yeah,
He's like, hey.
Yeah.
it risked his life, you know, and he popped his shower cherry in that.
Yeah, I thought that was a little bit unrealistic because I think he was smart enough that he should have realized that a lot of people were just in it for the protection. Like, I if I went to a prison, I would be tempted to join some gang,
I
not
probably
because
would.
of what they believe, but because I don't want to get
Have
raped
to.
in the shower,
Yeah.
you know, repeatedly,
Yeah,
or
you
beat
probably
up in
have
the workout yard or whatever, or
Mhm.
shanked in the
Mhm.
shower, wherever, you know, it's a nasty place. You need allies.
Yeah, and
Yeah,
Nick,
especially like a state prison.
to your point, Nick, about maybe in another situation he would have got along with that basketball guy. We see that when he's doing the laundry duty. It takes
Yeah.
like a year of that. What's his name, Montrell or something like that. He's like, he's
don't even know.
talking the whole time, and Derek's just like quiet, just like stonewalling him, just doing the work. And then after about a year, he finally gets him to start laughing. And then by the end of it, they're very friendly, like they're getting along. And that guy actually ends up saving his ass until he can get out of the prison.
Right. Because
Right.
Derek, how did he lose the support of his gang? Because
Well, it
they
had to do with-
beat him up. Why did
Well,
they beat him up? Why did they rape him again? I forget.
it had to do with what Daniel was saying about like the when he was being like super principled, and one of the other guys in the group was doing drug deals with like a Mexican guy, and he's like, hey, what the hell, this bullshit, we can't support him. And the dude gave him like the Zig Heil thing, and he just walked away. So they were like, all right, he's a punk, let's teach him a lesson. It's basically.
So he didn't Zeke Heil back. So then they're like, we're going to rape you.
Well,
I guess so.
That's
They
pretty
were like
harsh.
there were like two or three things that Derek did to let them know that he wasn't that he was going to preach at them or be overly principled versus what they wanted to do, which was just they're in this loose coalition for the protection, the mutual protection. Whereas he's in it because, these are the skinhead guys, so they must believe in the skinhead stuff, and he's still like big into that. And when he realizes that they're not, he doesn't want to associate with them anymore. So he's like sort of foregoing that protection and shunning them, and he pays a price for it,
Yeah, and when he gets in there, he kind of acts, they kind of absorb him like he's hot shit. Like they're like, "Oh, we heard about you, brother," and like, come on, like obviously you're gonna hang with us. I don't know if were they like, "Oh yes, he killed a black he curb stomped a black dude." I don't know if they were really like, they're just like, "Oh, here's another guy to add to our gang, I guess, who's violent."
Yes, I wanted to ask you guys if it's clear to you who the guy who was curb stomped was. Was he the guy who he was playing with basketball earlier?
That was definitely him. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, that's what I understood it to be.
And
I think because his hair.
Okay, and then at the end, when Danny gets shot, when I was watching the movie, I'm like, he got shot because he stood up to that group of guys who was beating up the other dude in the bathroom, and he blew smoke in his face.
Right.
But then I saw a note online where it says, "Why did Danny get shot at the end?" They said that it's because that guy was the younger brother of the guy who got curb stomped.
Well, that guy that shot him was also at the basketball game, but I don't know.
That was a separate basketball game. Like all the black and white is all
in the past, yeah.
Yeah, and the basketball court scene where Eddie Furlong is seen by the guy who ends up shooting him is present day, like color version.
Yeah. The funny thing about the black and white scenes, I read this recently. It's kind of silly, but I guess it makes sense. It's like the past, everything's black and white, and then now it's like all in color. Like you see the real big picture. Like it was black and white. Yeah, like that was the whole point. Maybe that wasn't the point, but yeah, the basketball game where he saw the kid from school, like the bully, that I think those were a different set of guys who were, a few years later, but he might be related to the guy who got shot. I mean,
well, that's what the internet
need
said.
To be.
Right. Yeah. I mean, it could be just he got shot because he was on the guy's radar.
It was revenge.
They definitely know about his older brother. I'm sure they know about his older brother, in school,
Well, if that's the case, then the movie didn't do a good enough job explaining that because it felt.
It felt something.
Yep.
You're muted. Oh, there you go.
My cable got unplugged. Sorry, guys.
Okay. It felt something.
It felt that scene felt unearned. Like I didn't see it coming and they wanted it to be a surprise. But I think if from an audience perspective, you need to feel dread that killing is coming. And I did not feel that at all.
Oh, I did. I think that they were doing a couple of things. One, they had that group of guys drive by the house and do finger guns at the house. And there was another scene where
that was the older group, older guys.
No, he was with them. He was actually with the guy because he was with the same guy. Like I'm assuming that guy he was with at the basketball court was like his brother or something. Cause he's like, "Hey, is that the, punk ass white boy who was messing with you at school today?"
Yeah.
And then later on,
that was at the basketball game, right?
Yeah, the first one, and in color, and then later on, they're driving past their house. They're doing the finger guns, but actually, you could kind of tell that kid, the younger kid, he was kind of like, in my opinion, I think the younger kid was just trying to be a bully. He was trying to be cool, but I don't think he got to the point yet where he was like a violent killer or anything. He kind of didn't. I don't know. Maybe I read too much into it, but like I just watched the scene where they drove past, and he seemed like he's like, let's just forget about him. That's the kind of face he made. He was like, man, whatever.
Well, and then when it happens, we're seeing Edward Norton feeling like he's under threat, right? There's a whole lot of like looking around, and so there's all this tension being built up that leads us up to, and it's sort of like a head fake, right? It's like, oh, we're supposed to be worried about Edward Norton getting somebody coming after him for what he had done at that party the night before. But then
That's
it's
what I
like
hated about it.
this sort of surprise that it's Eddie Furlong who gets shot. But there is some foreshadowing to Furlong getting shot, at least 2 or 3 instances of that sort of being laid out. But there's that head fake at the end.
Do you really think that it was that Edward Furlong had done anything to justify being shot in the bathroom at the end?
Not
No.
at all.
But
Okay,
he
then.
did disrespect that guy who was bullying.
Who was
that other
some
kid.
bully in school, not
He was bullying the older
murderer.
brother of the dude from that 70s show, actually, in real life.
Really?
The guy who from Malcolm in the Middle, like the oldest brother. That's who that actor is. I don't have like a weird thing with fate. Yeah, that was that guy. But anyways, yeah.
Okay. Anyway,
And I don't think it necessarily needs to have that much of an explanation. Like, I know when I was a young man, I did a lot of stupid shit because I thought it would be, I don't know, fun, dangerous, exciting, whatever. And that was in a small town, not in, a gang area.
So what was the motivation for the kid to shoot Edward Furlong at the end?
That he had been disrespected.
So he was disrespected, so he goes straight to murder.
Yeah.
Okay, that's if that's good enough motivation for you, that's fine. It was not good enough motivation for me.
It's got to be a combination though of like the disrespect and the fact that his brother is who he is. I would think.
If we got a scene where the kid like idolized his big brother, and his big brother was like, what you got to do is you got to kill that mother.
Yeah.
Because you can't let him disrespect you like that. Blah, 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 blah. Okay. Maybe it's a little on the nose. I'm sure a better writer would, take a second pass at that's dialogue right there. But you know what I'm saying? Like, give me a little bit more to make that scene earned instead of, okay.
Yeah, as it plays out, it just kind of happens, and
Right.
they do make you think it's going to be
violence. But I bet you, everybody that kills anybody, even if they're a young dumb kid, they feel like they've got good reasons for doing it at the time. Maybe I'm sure that a lot of them regret it afterwards, hopefully. But at the time, people feel what they have are good motivations for doing things.
Like they want to get into the gang.
Maybe it's a gang initiation thing, and you had to kill somebody. That would have been a great scene to have in this film. And then there would have been some drama about whether or not he's going to do it or not. But I see maybe this is part of the edit of the Edward Norton or what's his name? Editing.
They could have easily cut out some pivotal thing there.
Maybe the director actually had
the director's cut was going to be shorter, only be 90 minutes. And
really?
And they asked him to add some scenes back in or something like that. And they gave him 8 weeks to do it. And then he didn't do it. And so then Ed Norton did it. And he added a bunch of stuff that like develops the relationship between Danny and Derek. So this is really like, it's a redemption story sort of for both of them, but at different kind of spaces on their arcs, right? Because by the end of it, Danny has kind of seen the light, right? He's written this paper, American History X, which I didn't understand what the name of the movie signified until I looked it up today. The X is from Malcolm X, because he used X because he didn't want to use a name that was given to him by white culture. So X is an unknown variable in mathematics. So that's why X. So that's why American History X, American History Unknown. I didn't know that until today. So good on me for a
still learning
movie. Still learning.
40 years old and he's still learning.
Still learning a few things. Anyway, it seemed at the end that Danny was like coming around, right? He was now going to change his ways and be a good dude, sort of like Derek had turned around from his prison stint.
Yeah, there's that scene where they tear down all the Nazi stuff off the walls. I didn't really feel like that was earned either. I could see why Edward Norton wouldn't do it, but I didn't see why Edward Furlong would want to do it necessarily after just like that one conversation with his brother saying that he was raped by some neo-Nazis in prison. I don't know. Maybe. But I understand the movie can't be 15 hours long either. So
I think
you gotta
that
have
his
characters do some things.
I think Danny, Edward Furlong's character, it was he kind of wasn't fully there like Derek was. Like there was that scene where Seth, who was played by Ethan Suplee, big dude, he's like, "Hey, asshole, tell me who you hate," and all this stuff, and he's filming it, and he kind of doesn't just jump right in and start doing. He's messing around. He's kind of making fun of the whole thing because he's a kid, and then he eventually says some stuff that's like, he says like one thing in his whole rant that's like a little bit racist. He's just like, "I hate that it's cool to be black," and then he says he hates Zionists, which you can there's an argument for that, and that's legitimate. And then like he says cool at Hillary Clinton with the rhetorical bullshit. So like I don't think he's fully there like Derek is. So it's a little believable to me that he's easily swayed back to not being a racist.
Okay. Yeah,
but
that's a good point.
I am with you on like I think it's just like a symbolic moment where they're tearing down. There's some epic music. It's like, okay, we get it. Like I don't think that arc would happen that fast, in my opinion. I don't think that he would come out and be like, "Oh, this is all total bullshit." I think he'd be like, "Yeah, whatever," and he would maybe still hang out with his girlfriend, maybe still hang out with his friends, and just not. But that's not the movie that was written. But like maybe
Right.
just just kind of cool it and step back and not do violent stuff, maybe try to educate them. I don't know, but there's so many different things that could have happened. We only got to deal with the movie that was written, but
yeah, well, let's get into any final points you guys want to make because we're almost at time, and then we can get into final summary and review. And I don't know if we want to give it like curb stomps out of 10. That's probably in poor taste. How about number of prison tats?
swastikas. Yeah.
They're folding underwear. How many
Folded towels. Folded towels. How about that?
Yeah, how many folded towels? There you go.
Controls the underwear.
Yeah, I don't really have any more points. Nick, if you got anything?
Well, I actually had like one. I think that we didn't really touch on the Sweeney is his name, the principal or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
He seems pretty libertarian, like because when like Derek's in jail and he's talking about how he's basically saying like he used to be a big collectivist and he might have been like a Black Panther or something, and he's like, it didn't do me any good to like just blame society for all of my personal problems. I blamed God, I blamed white people and the government, and like you're right to blame the government for quite a bit of it, but like he kind of just snaps him to make him become an individualist again or something like that, or at least more individualist. So I would say he's pretty libertarian. And at the beginning, when Danny gets in trouble for writing the Mein Kampf paper, he's like, well, Murray, you tough luck. You assigned him, you have to write a paper on anyone promoting civil rights or something. He chose Hitler. But it's like you kind of backed yourself into a corner there. I thought that was kind of cool. That guy was pretty like he was pretty open-minded. He was kind of like the libertarian voice of the movie in a way.
Yeah, and I kind of like that aspect of it. Like, why can't you talk about that stuff? If they're bad ideas, then put sunlight on them and show why they're bad. But just to make something taboo, that almost makes it like something to look at subversively, and like it makes it more attractive in a way.
For sure. And if you're a disaffected person who doesn't fit in anyway, you're going to be more interested in what is this stuff that I'm not supposed to look into. Yeah.
Right. And then you're not going to get like these counter arguments because it's all in the shadows.
Exactly. Another reason not to, defeat it with straw man, steel man the arguments, right? Like a lot of, I don't know, denunciations of anybody these days, it seems to be, is to just call them racist. And then that's just a catch-all for anything we don't like. And that doesn't make anybody, I think, change their mind, because you're not actually dealing with their actual points. Like, if you were to tell Derek, like, you're just a racist, blah, blah, blah. He's like, okay, but you didn't address any of the points I said. I just made
Right.
about 15 good points, and you just called me a racist. How is that an argument?
Right. Yeah. It ends the argument. It ends the debate, and it doesn't achieve anything.
Right.
So, yeah. Well, Robert, you want to lead us off with your final summary review and how many towels you folding over there?
Okay. So, how do you rank this one? I think it's a well-made film for the most part. I think it's can be used from a variety of perspectives to forward any number of given agendas. I think you can use it a lot of different people. I think we've had quite a few movies where you can kind of use it as a teaching tool to forward any of your own particular viewpoints. It's a complex and it's a nuanced film. I didn't like the idea that the father questioning affirmative action is the slippery slope to being a neo-Nazi. I thought that was a bridge too far for the script. I lost respect for the script at that point, but for the most part, it's really well written. It's well acted. Edward Norton gives a fantastic performance. All the other ancillary characters do just fine. I don't know if there's any particular standouts, but it's nothing. There's no sore thumbs out there that it's like, what is this guy doing here? All the characters seem to be fairly well believable, even if you're only getting little glimmers of them. It's a very interesting subject matter, because these days, in these hypersensitive times, if you say that the Nazis had any strong points to make, you're a horrible person and you are to be excommunicated from polite society, when that does nobody any good. You have to steelman the arguments. You have to point out and agree with, find points of agreement with even the most lost people sometimes. And so then you can convince them, because just calling them racist isn't going to convince them of anything. It's just going to help them turtle back into their shell, and you're not going to change their mind about anything. I think it's the laziest form of argumentation is to just ad hom, even if you're correct, even if you're saying, well, you're a racist, and he is, it's not going to change his mind about anything, because he knows. He doesn't care. He thinks he's got really strong points as to why the blacks are this way, or the Asians are this way, or whatever. And I may think he's wrong, but I'm not going to just sit there and say he's racist. I'm going to say, okay, this is why, this is where we agree, this is where we disagree, and this is why I disagree with you on this part. And this is why you're going too far. So I think it's a well-written film. It's open for lots of really good discussion. We could probably go for a really long time. And I feel like I should have taken better notes, because there's some like stuff where I just wish I had a transcript of the film and we could just go line by line, but that would just take forever. But this is one of those good films where you really could dissect it that much. So I'm going to fold 7.5 towels out of 10 towels. And hopefully the Nazis aren't going to rape me in the prison.
Oh, careful what you wish not for. I don't know. So I'm going to jump off, and then we'll go to you, Nick. This is a movie that I hadn't seen in a long time, like I was saying in the pre-show. and I'm glad that I saw it again. It holds up really, really well. It's very well done. It has some very nice arcs in it and some cinematic tricks that kind of blend it together and make it work. I like that you open on this idyllic beach scene with like the boys choir kind of music, and then you get into this like really intense, really visceral and violent movie that has some really interesting takes on things. And then you kind of go out on the beach scenes again, so it kind of does a nice envelope of the movie. Ed Norton is a powerhouse in this thing, and it's I think he was nominated for an Academy Award for his acting. He didn't win, but I think Adrian Brody did that year. But really, really well done. I'd like to see more work by this director. I know that he kind of blackballed himself a little bit as he was so difficult to work with on producing this. But he has a really nice eye. I think he also did the cinematography for this. And so I would look forward to some more of his work, and I'll look into it and see if there is more. And I'm going to give this 8 folded towels, or maybe 4 medium-sized drawers and 4 large-sized drawers, because I'm folding the underwear in the early part of the movie. And how about you, Nick? Let's go to you for your summary and review.
Yeah, I mean, for the movie that was written, not for like, how I could compare it to life today. I mean, I liked it a lot, and I think overall the message is good. Don't be a racist, collectivist asshole. And look, I mean, the acting is amazing overall, and like you were saying, like there are some really cool cinematic tricks. Like the music played a lot to it. Like the basketball scene, there's like this intense music that's like, it's really just dudes playing basketball, but it sounds like, it sounds like a battle, but like, but the arcs are really cool. Like when, Edward Norton comes back, I mean, it's badass because he's good again and he fights people, and, so it's a really cool movie. I would probably give it also 8 draws or folded towels. Probably 8 or 9. Like, and it's weirdly, this is gonna sound bad, but it's a very quotable movie, I guess. And you probably wouldn't want to quote it in public, but like I used to work at a pizza place in New York, and we just say messed up shit all the time there. So that's probably where I heard about this movie, actually. But it's fun. Like a lot of the quotes are like really funny out of context, but they're horrible things to say to people. Anyways, it's really, really well written. I liked it a lot. I pretty much watched it like probably like once a year for like since I saw it. So probably like 10 times, I'd say. So I thought it was a great movie.
All right. Well, thank you for that. And thank you for bringing it up. And thank you for being our guest. It's been a lot of fun. We'd love to have you back on again in the future. As long as we continue to do this thing that we call the Last Nighters podcast here, movie reviews from a free market perspective. And Robert, next week, we're going to be doing something that just got decided moments before we went on. And that is Mike C. coming back for Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, the George Clooney movie. You familiar with this movie?
Yeah, it's got what's his bucket playing an assassin, Barry something. He was like a game show host who was also a CIA hitman.
Yeah. So he suggested the movie just for me to watch it, and then we had what we were going to do next week. They had to push back a couple of weeks, so I was like, "Hey, Mike, we got an opening." So he's down to do it, and so that'll be next week. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind, starring George Clooney, produced by Steven Soderbergh and Harvey Weinstein.
No, wait a minute. No, George Clooney is not the star of the movie. It's what's his name that was in like Charlie's Angels and stuff.
Well, you tell me, buddy. I haven't seen it yet, but I'm gonna see it.
Yeah, no, it's Sam Rockwell.
Oh, Sam Rockwell. Yeah, you like him.
Yeah, I mean Clooney's in it, but yeah, the main character is Rockwell, who is, I think, Rockwell is dynamite in most everything he's in. He has an incredible screen presence. He has a lot of fun in his characters.
Yeah, so that'll be a lot of fun. So yeah, Mike C coming back for 15th or 16th time. So check it out next week when we come back for that. Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. And Nick, people can find your work at thestatusquo.net for your co-hosting and producing abilities. And then also for your musical abilities, go to nickwhitenoise.com. And we'll, of course, have links to all of that on our show notes page at lastnighter.com/190. And thanks again. And do you have any final words for our audience before we get into some Kathleen Turner Overdrive, which is the Patreon bonus content we have for people?
Oh man, I don't know. Just don't judge a book by its cover. The movie has a dude with a swastika on his chest. It's like it's a pretty good movie. So a lot of these, I saw this movie when I got into a lot of cult movies. So yeah, it's a great one. Check it out.
All right.
And yeah, check out my music and my podcast too, if you want.
Yeah, check those things out too. Highly recommended. All right. Well, that's it, everyone. So we'll say good night from last night. We'll see you guys next week. All right, I got a few more minutes of the Actual Anarchy podcast here, and I did an inadvertent right click instead of a left click, so that's why there was that little delay at the end there with the outro music not playing right on time, right on cue. But I wanted to throw this question out because as this movie has become somewhat more relevant, or at least people seem to think so, and they're writing articles about it as such, is this a movie that could be made in today's climate, or does it just get referenced and brought up as a relevant film? As a sort of historic relic, because I really think you'd have problems just even getting the imagery to be allowed to be out in the world these days, or some of these messages even being said. I've seen people get in trouble for performances reciting lines in a movie, and they'll get in trouble for saying them as if they were saying those lines as the individual person who's the actor. And so it just seems like a movie that would be really hard to make now. Robert, what's your take on that?
Well, yeah, the imagery for sure, and particularly in, say, like Germany or some parts of the EU where the swastika can't even be shown, as if it's the swastika that killed all the Jews. It's so stupid. It's just so stupid. They can't admit that it was the belief in authority and the going along with the insane ideologies that did it, that killed all the people. It was just the Nazis themselves. They were this unique evil, and it can never happen again as long as we hide it from modern eyeballs. It'll never come back again, because that's what radicalizes people, is seeing shapes and images. No, it's real stupid. Could it be made? I think it probably could. I don't know if this exact film could be made again, but I could definitely see. I mean, we saw Green Room, which is kind of, it had Nazis as the villains, and Nazis are kind of the villains in this movie too. Although it features the redemption arc of the main character, and so maybe you're humanizing Nazis too much, I guess. Maybe, I don't know, but you definitely, you see Nazis all the time. They're always the villains in video games, or there's a million World War II video games where you're endlessly mowing down Nazis. But yeah, you're right. There are definitely hypersensitive areas where you can't even reference things said by, unmentionable people, canceled people, that kind of thing, because then that puts you in the same basket of deplorables or whatever. But I think you could, but it wouldn't exactly be the same. It would be more of another kind of more hardcore leftist teaching movie, as opposed to a more nuanced humanistic view.
Okay. All right. So you think this is the more nuanced humanistic view, that probably couldn't be taken today. You could make something that's a little bit more like aggressively anti like
Right.
white supremacy or whatever like that.
Right.
Yeah, okay.
That's my general idea, but who knows?
Yeah. One thing I thought that was interesting, and Nick, I want your take on this as well. When the police were talking about the Cameron guy, who's like the ringleader of this whole thing, they were like, yeah, he's pretty clean. We can't get him on anything. But he's openly like saying all this stuff, selling the paraphernalia, selling the books, doing all these things that I think today you would get canceled for immediately. And like, at least in the UK, get arrested for hate speech or something like that. So it just seemed like a really weird thing. It was back when the First Amendment seemed to mean something, and the police were sort of respecting it. Like, well, we can't really get him on anything because it's like a free speech thing. But I don't know if that would hold up these days. And unfortunately, I mean, I think that if you're going to have a First Amendment, recognize it and use it. I remember when the ACLU defended the right for white supremacists to march, right, and have free speech. That's the kind of ACLU I like, where they're actually going to stand on principle, even though they despise the message that is being espoused. I think that is the way that things should be approached. But Nick, what's your take?
Yeah, I mean, it's kind of like I hate what you're saying, but I'll defend your right to say it. But yeah, to Cameron being like canceled today, I mean, I don't know. Social media wasn't around back then, so it's not like I don't think he's spewing. I don't think he's like walking around hanging up flyers or something, whatever social media would be back then. I don't think he's walking around like making it a big public thing where he's like, black people this, whatever. I think like, they just find each other. Well, I don't know how they get to each other, but they'll find him. He finds them,
the old-fashioned
punk
way.
show.
Yeah,
like word of mouth networking. And so definitely he'd be canceled. Like he would be like a Richard. I guess he'd be like a Richard Spencer. He kind of reminds me of like a Charles Manson or something, where he like didn't do anything, I guess, but he went down.
Got his followers to do it.
Yeah. So, he would definitely be canceled though. And it wouldn't be, I think a lot of these guys, like, because there isn't social media, I'm totally just thinking this now, but I think that they wouldn't be as like brazenly racist. They would be saying, instead of, for example, like when Derek took his shirt off and was like, not welcome, he was saying the K word and he was calling him a Jew and stuff. I think more or less those guys today would be more or less calling them like a communist and a socialist. They might call him a Jew or something, but like they would be more or less talking about like, you're a communist, you're a leftist, they would be making fun of you're a progressive instead of you're a Jew. Like I think they would be trying to get to more, I guess, reasonable points about a person, even though I don't know if Murray is a socialist. He's probably, pretty left wing, but I don't know. I just think it'd be totally different today because there's social media.
Yeah.
Which wasn't around back then.
I saw somebody claim that being called a globalist was like a anti-Semitic slur now. So you're not saying that they would call them these other things as like dog whistles, but that they would try to be more specific to attack the ideology or philosophy of those people rather than pick on their racial characteristics.
Yeah, or they would attack like statistics that are perceived about them. Like a lot of them today, which a lot of us say this stuff today, a lot of like reasonable libertarians, but like we don't bring it up every 5 seconds, but like it's 13% of the population, 50% of blah, 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 stuff like that. Statistics, they'll bring stuff up like that. I think a lot of guys today will say stuff like that. They'll put it in meme format and they'll just, be like, if there's like something that a Jew does that, like Ben Shapiro said something stupid and then someone will be like chosen ones. It's just like, though instead, yeah, they kind of dog whistle, but it's half the time they're kind of making sense. They'll be like, "Oh, you're a socialist, you're a neocon, you love war or something." It's like, yeah, I mean, I agree with that. His religion or his race doesn't have anything to do with why I think he's bad, but so I think it's just a different ball game today. I think back then they were only in their echo chamber. You know, he was only hanging out with like Cameron was only hanging out with like his Nazi following, and then, you know, getting on them to do stuff. Today, it's like there's not like a huge Nazi thing today, so I can't really speak on that. But like, there probably is like, you know, like right-wing groups or something that are anti-neocon and anti-leftist that are super critical of Israel. I mean, I'm pretty critical of Israel, but I'm not in like groups where they're super racist. So I can't speak on it too much, but I don't think it would be as brazenly racist as it, you know, as the movie portrays. I think they had to do that too for the film to make it so, oh, this guy's so evil, you know, he's saying all this.
Right, but it
racist
also seems
slurs.
like current day is like almost anything is labeled as racist, so therefore almost
That's
everything
true too.
is racist. But it sort of loses its point, you know.
And I'm speaking on like the hypothetical like 600 people out there who are like that radically neo-reactionist. Like, there's not like a huge movement of neo-reactionists. It's maybe in groups on like 4chan or Reddit there are, but it's mostly just to be a jackass and to post memes, I think, you know.
Yeah, lots of trolling.
Yeah.
I'm a fan of memes. Edgy, spicy memes. But
yeah, me too.
Yeah.
I mean, I'm friends with a couple of like guys who are kind of like that, and I still don't know if they're serious or because they're rarely really funny. So I'm like, do you actually think that you came from giants? Like, or are you just like really a really good troll? Like, I just don't know, you know.
All right. Well, hey, this has been a lot of fun. We should end it there and get into some of our Kathleen Turner Overdrive bonus content for people. But we'll be back next week with Mike C for Confessions of a Dangerous Mind. Check out Nick's work at nickwhitenoise.com for his musical stuff, and also the statistquo.net for his podcast work and production work in making podcasts. And we'll see you guys all next week. And got to find the right buttons, and we'll get into some Kathleen Turner Overdrive right after this. Maximum freedom, everyone. Peace out.
The Chipmunks. CHIPMUNK. We're the Chipmunks. Guaranteed to brighten your day. Do 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 do.
Oh man, it is hot as balls in here. It's a dog whistling 88 degrees in here.
Oh no.
Oh shit. So I'm like burning up, but I think we did okay. I think that we probably won't get a community guideline strike. I don't know. I think it'll be all right.
Hopefully.
Yeah, and I don't know, Nick, your camera got all blurry. I don't know if you can see.
I don't understand. I had to run out of the room. My cat was like stuck in my room, and I didn't realize it. So I don't know what the hell's going on.
Oh, maybe reset the focus or something when you left and came back. I don't know.
I'm all pixelated. Yeah, I don't know. I saw him in here, and he was like burning up, so I had to cut him loose.
Yeah, so I was tempted. I was asking my wife. She cuts my hair from time to time. I was like, "Hey, what do you think about shaving my head for tonight's episode?"
Oh, dude, I had like I hate having facial hair, but I was like growing a goatee the past couple days, and I was about to have it just for like the show, but I don't know. I decided to shave last minute.
Yeah, it's probably better.
That would have been pretty funny.
Well, Robert's the only one who actually pulled off the look.
I look like this all the time, you son of a bitch.
You just naturally look like a white supremacist.
You mean they look like me because it's a good look?
Yeah, just some
Can't help
facial
it.
hair, short
Can't help
cropped. Yeah, it's. I could tell you when I had my long hair, it was a pain in the ass. It was always getting in my eyes. It took like tons of shampoo to deal with. Had to brush it.
Yeah,
High and
long
tight,
hair's for suckers.
way better.
Long hair's for suckers.
Yeah, I gotta go a little in between. Yeah, but I used to have long hair too, man. I always want to get back to it, but the journey there, it's like, it's not worth it. It's too hot and disgusting.
Yeah, or it looks like really just stupid for a long time.
Yeah, exactly. The middle point.
Yeah, I don't. My wife didn't like it, so I had to go.
So I had to go. I don't know. My girlfriend, my fiance wants me to have like long hair and probably a beard, but I'm like, dude, I during the day I repair cars and we don't have AC and it's pretty miserable. I have to I'm surprised I don't shave my head. I mean, I like having hair, so that's probably why, but if I didn't care, I would definitely shave it because it's hot as balls.
Yeah, are you in a spot where it's muggy as well?
Yeah, man, Ohio gets pretty humid. It's I used to live in Georgia too. It's not that bad, but it's just like muggy. Like I've lived in Buffalo, Ohio, and Georgia, and like they all kind of suck. Like they're all like too extreme. Like Buffalo is insanely cold. Ohio is like stupidly humid, and then Georgia, I did like Georgia, but I didn't have AC there either. I worked on cars there, and it was like impossible to get around, like because of traffic, and I didn't like know anyone there, so I was like kind of miserable. So I moved back. I grew up here, so I moved back here. But yeah, I kind of liked it down there, but yeah, Ohio is kind of lame in my opinion. I'm getting over it. You guys are in like what? Yeah, you guys are in Washington?
Yeah. So we're at the whims of Seattle a little bit.
I know quite a few people who've moved out there. They like it a lot, and they say it's not as rainy as everyone thinks it is.
It's hardly rained in the last 2 months here.
Oh, really?
Like 1 or 2 days of rain for us, and that's pretty rare. Like in the winter, it rains probably every couple days, most of the time, but it's never like this real heavy rain. It's always just kind of like drizzly, gray, kind of sad sack,
Yeah. That's manageable.
Overall,
I
the
wish
weather's
we got
pretty
more
good.
rain in the East Coast or the east side of the mountains, but the West Coast mountains, it's all sucks it all up.
Yeah.
Gotcha.
And we're in the fire season here, so it's not great.
Oh, wow. Yeah, my parents just moved out to Denver like a year ago, and I found it weird when I visited and you couldn't like have a fire in the summer or whatever. I was like, what? This is like authoritarianism. Why can't I have a fire in my backyard? But I get it. There's actually a legitimate reason for that.
Yeah. It's been so dry here, and where Robert is, it's usually dry in the summer, but it's probably more so now, right? Like
It's a tinderbox. The whole east side of the mountains is a tinderbox.
Yeah, like we have a carpet of pine needles just from all the pine trees just losing all the needles because they're so dry. Like I've never seen it like this before. It's I think Greta Thunberg was right, man. We've crossed the tipping point. We only have like 8 months left before the world will burn up. Or what'd they say? 12 years?
Yeah, but that was what, like 5 years ago, 6 years ago, or something.
Yeah, so
yeah.
we're halfway there.
I think we'd be halfway there even without the weather changes.
Yeah, sliding into the totalitarian hellscape certainly seems to be what's happening these days.
Or the virus.
Well, that's
everyone's dying.
Oh shit! Yeah, it's gonna get you.
Yeah. Turn into zombies.
Yeah, luckily I didn't Never. And I'm in people's car. I'm in tons of people's cars every day. I've never gotten it. At least that I know of. I don't
Well,
know
that's the
about you
thing. A lot of
guys.
people didn't even know that they were even got sick, and they developed antibodies to it, and they were fine. And they weren't spreading it either because they didn't have enough viral load to spread it. I mean, how many studies were there that said the asymptomatic spread, if ever occurred, is like so super rare? It'd be like winning the lottery.
There was a Chinese study. I think it had like 10,000 participants, and they found 0 instances of asymptomatic spread.
Yeah, I mean, I believe it, and I buy the whole science, because like when a virus gets more transmissible, it's got to be less deadly because like legitimately in real life, because I was really into like The Walking Dead and like zombie stuff when I lived in Georgia, and they brought Ebola to Emory College when I was living there, and I literally moved back to New York, like because I was crazy, but I was like, oh, everyone's gonna die. It's gonna be like The Walking Dead down here, but it doesn't like it's not. I don't think it can be like a huge like countrywide pandemic with that because it kills you so fast that you get so sick so fast. You don't spread. I'm not a doctor, so anyone listening to this.
No, that's true. The incubation period is way too short in Marburg
Yeah.
and Ebola. It kills its hosts way too quickly, in just a few days. So it's not fast. It's not slow enough incubation period for people to move and spread around and get it out there.
Yeah. So like, you will probably like we'll see. They're like, oh my god, there's like 12,000 cases a day. It's like, well, and they're only talking about cases now, right? They're not talking about deaths. So there's a lot of cases because people are testing positive for it because it's even less deadly than it already was. Again,
And the
I'm not a
test is pretty
doctor,
garbage anyway. It's got tons of false positives, and the threshold is like all over the board.
Yeah,
all sorts of problems. And if you're testing healthy people, then you're going to get like they shouldn't even be testing healthy people. Like unless you're exhibiting symptoms, there's no reason to be tested.
Yep.
Yeah, I mean, if you're, you just don't even get tested. Like, just like treat your symptoms and like I don't know. Like they're talking about implementing masks back in my work and stuff, and I'm like, if you're not vaxxed, it's like didn't they already prove that people who are vaxxed are spreading the virus supposedly? So
with viral shedding, yeah.
I cannot stand. That's probably why I'm a libertarian, which means pretty much nothing. It means I'm just crazy. But I cannot stand any kind of system that is not like 100% logic based. Like just look at the logic and follow it. Like if you're gonna have a system where like people agree to follow it, it's like it has to be rooted in logic. You can't like shift the goalposts every day and like it just drives me nuts. So like, oh, okay, now we're gonna start having masks, even though it's proven that like the virus can go through the mask, but who cares? Like just do it.
Yeah.
It's like
my point is that if the virus was really that deadly and all kinds of people are falling over dead all over the place, you wouldn't need all these authoritarian mandates. People would just be doing this stuff.
Yeah.
For their own protection.
No one's ever brought this up, but it's funny because at the beginning of all this, it was like in March or whatever of last year, maybe February. The people who were really, I was one of the people kind of who was like really into, because like a lot of preppers were like, oh, this is it. Like my stepdad like threw me like a Polish gas mask. And he's like, this is it. And I was like, all right. And like, we bought these like nose, N95 nose things, like the preppers, and like the boomer, not just boomers, but like kind of like prepper people were, a lot of libertarians. Jack Spearco was talking about it. Like they were like, okay, you got to get Q certain, you got to get elderberry, you got to get this and that. And then, later on, a lot of them were like, oh, it's harmless, but it's just funny how things end up. I mean, I was also like, oh shit, we probably should get like masks and stuff. And the people who were the most like crazy about it were like right-wing preppers actually at first. No one ever really talks about that, but and probably rightfully so to be. And I'm not making fun of them. I mean, they're telling you,
Yeah,
hey,
I know.
everyone's
I know
gonna
there were a
die.
lot of people that were skeptical of the information out of China initially. They thought that the Chinese government was suppressing this very, very deadly thing, and they were
Yeah.
falsely reporting it to be not that big of a
that's-
deal.
That's probably true. I mean, it's not a big deal though. So yeah, I don't really care. It's like it only kills the extremely elderly and sick. So, which that's sad, but like,
But that's what disease always does.
yeah,
That's the history of humankind. Is
Yeah.
the disease finally kills you when you're at your vulnerable point. It's a tipping thing that tips the point over. It's not striking people down in the prime of their lives. That's what the Spanish flu did back in the day. Is it struck down like young, healthy people, and that's why that
Yeah.
was pretty terrifying. But this is, the last nail in the coffin. It's not wiping out the young and healthy.
yeah, I would say so.
Well, boys, I hate to cut this one short, but I think I'm a little burned up in here, and I know you're pretty hot over there, Nick.
Yeah, a little toasty.
So thanks again. This has been a lot of fun, and again, we'd love to have you back on in the near future.
Yeah.
Let me know what you had another movie in mind. It was I hadn't heard of it. It
What
was,
was it?
about kids in a prison system or something like that.
Dog Pound. Kind of, in the same realm. Not really, but of American History X, there's a lot of prison. It all takes place in like a juvie system. And someone I know who's been to actual prison, like Rikers Island, he was like, "Whoa, this movie's very realistic." And it's like, "Oh, okay,
Okay.
you say so." And it's
Well,
a
I'd love
messed
to
up
rail
movie, but it's
against
kind
the
of
justice
badass.
system and prison system. I think that'd be great.
Yeah, it's a good one.
Okay.
You guys would dig it.
All right. Well, thanks again. And this will come out on Sunday on Actual Anarchy and Monday for Last Nighters.
Yeah, boy.
You.
Yeah, thanks, Nick.
Yeah, thanks for inviting me on, guys. It was really fun.
Yeah, man.
All right. And thank you, our audience, for sticking around watching the live stream here. A couple of people, my wife probably being one of them. And see you soon, honey. Be in the house pretty soon to cool off. It's pretty freaking hot out here. Anyway, we'll see you guys all next week. Peace out.
Peace.
How will the state decide what to tell them to do? That's the real problem with socialism. There's no way that socialist government can calculate and try to figure out who do we send to Siberia, how many people, what price do we set, who's going to carry out the garbage, how many people should carry out the garbage. There's no way the socialist government can calculate, because as Mises pointed out, there's no free price system, there's no private ownership of the means of production by definition, and therefore there's no property titles, there's no free market in property titles, there's no way to set up a real price system. There's no way a socialist government can calculate. It's economic chaos.